We came out of the gate so hardcore, so bad at, that terrified the people that were actually soft targets, which are, people.
The ones who need it.
The ones who need it.
Yeah.
Instead, we had people, showing up in their big lifted trucks with all their ink camo, all this stuff, and they all want to jump out of a helicopter. And I'm like, okay, this is great for about a year, but I'm like, okay, there's actually people that don't have that profile that are the most vulnerable.
I know the power of story, and everybody has got a story.
Portland, of all places, there's a lot of tough conversations.
Well, we're going to explore what we can do to make a difference in the community. We're going to hear a lot of opinions and ideas.
The mission of Portland Interview Magazine podcasts is to connect. This is the Portland Interview Magazine podcast with your host, Dave Dahl, on Talkcast PDX.
I have an amazing person here that I've talked to a few times now, and I just hope this goes as well as the other conversations, because, this person just has so much to say. Her name is Shannon Monihan, and I'm going to give you a little rundown of this lady's background. She has a degree in
Frederick
and communications at the University of Oregon. She studied public speaking in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And she was a flight attendant.
Yeah.
On Delta Airlines. She was a medical clinic director at Aesthetic Medicine in Lake Oswego, Oregon. Mm-hmm. Okay, and there's more.
That was just
But she's been a business, product, and brand developer. I think that's kind of who you are.
Yeah.
Most of all. That's a lot of stuff. Business developer, product
marketing.
Developer.
Mm-hmm.
That's me too. Brand developer. That's essentially, what I've done. And you got a big family.
Yeah.
And that's great. My family isn't big, but I've picked up a lot of family members by getting married.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
That's a good thing. And she's currently the owner of Red Frog Team.
Yeah.
Whose stated mission is to provide elite, that's a crazy word right there, provide elite tactical training to military, law enforcement, armed security, and civilians. Mm-hmm. That's the part I like. Mm-hmm. We teach everything from beginner to advanced training courses, including pistol courses, rifle courses, night vision, and other laser devices. Yeah. Every day, carry tactics. Everyday carry. Yeah, it's just like, okay.
Concealed carry,
becoming good at carrying a gun the right way. Scenario-based training. I remember talking to you about that a little bit.
Force on force, yep.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
That's very important. A lot of people don't have that.
No.
They're not ready when it happens.
They're not ready, yeah.
So our team provides, this is the last sentence here, our team provides active shooter threat assessments for schools, churches, and businesses. That sounds great. Yeah.
All the things you need to know to kind of not be a soft target.
Yeah.
So going from us being vulnerable to not vulnerable. So,
right, and it's more than just guns.
It's more than just guns.
It's a mindset. It's being ready. Right.
Situationally aware, mental mindset. There's so many defense weapons out there. There's so many strategies out there, and I think everyone runs straight to
AR-15.
I gotta buy a gun. AR-15. By the way, I love my AR, and that is my home protection gun. But
I would have an AR-15 if I could own a gun.
If you could.
I am a felon.
Right. Well, and there's a lot of places that have gun-free zones, like churches or medical facilities or schools that have policies and so forth. So the discussion doesn't need to start with go buy a gun, shoot the gun. There needs to be a discussion around, what the environment you're living in, why you feel like you're a soft target, and how to prevent that with a lot of different strategies, starting with, your environment and maybe the campus you're on and what that security posture looks like. And anyway, as you go down deeper in the weeds, the politics of it, which actually sent me in a different direction when I started the company, because the politics of this, guns got into, they didn't actually want active shooter training. And so then I moved into just selling shirts and, okay, we're just going to be a fun brand selling shirts and tactical stuff, know. And then from that came the actual proficiency training on firearms. But with that conversation, there's, like you said, so many other things to talk about. Besides lethal defense weapons, there's non-lethal options too. And anyway.
Well, I'd like to bring my wife. I told you before. I'd like to bring my wife, and that she could actually handle a gun.
Yeah.
And I personally would just imagine myself holding a gun.
There you go.
Because when the situation comes down, I at least have to have everything else ready to go. And if I needed to pick up a gun in a situation, I would do it.
Right.
Even if it sends me to prison.
There's defensive tactics that have nothing to do with guns. Yeah. So physical, whether it be jiu-jitsu, there's a lot of jiu-jitsu type things now, maneuvers, how to maneuver around a person. If you don't, I certainly don't want to shoot anybody. Sure. I don't think anybody wants to shoot anyone that
too much paperwork.
Yeah, that's a lot of questions. And so honestly, I think all of us, and I think there's a myth out there that, maybe people who don't understand firearms think, oh, everyone that grabs a gun can't wait to use it. And I would argue that that's the exact opposite. What a horrid thing to go through. And if we can de-escalate the situation with other options, which is what we want so much of, it's the landscape right now we're all talking about, de-escalation, use of force. And so I think where Red Frog is a little bit different as we're talking about not just gun training, but we're really opening up the conversation before that, combat medical trauma training. My last podcast I just did had to do with just some basics of, hey, what if someone next to you gets hurt, bleeds out, and what do you do to help them? So I think it's important to not just do firearms training, but also really open up the conversation to how not to be a soft target, how to be a hard target, how not to be vulnerable, all these things. And then if you decide a defense weapon, whether it be lethal or non-lethal, make sure you're proficient at it, because it's sort of like an instrument that you learn how to play. Yeah. You have to practice so you automatically, do it well. And in the situation where there's high anxiety, high stress, and
you don't even know until
you don't even know. And you mentioned I was a flight attendant. I was, and I really there's 2 times in my life I learned about feeling vulnerable. One was, there's many times. You get into my personal story, but
that's okay.
But being vulnerable is a really hard thing, and when I worked for Middleman Jewish Community Center here in Portland, and then out at B'nai B'rith Camp, I was raised Catholic, but I worked in the Jewish community here in Portland quite a bit. And one thing was they were feeling very vulnerable in the late 80s for threats.
They're probably feeling pretty vulnerable today.
Very vulnerable today. Yeah. And, they've lived a vulnerable, as their culture. But I learned about, security posture. And we talked about it then. More people are talking about it now, but back in the late 80s. And then when I became a flight attendant, I was an international flight attendant. We were dealing with threats and so forth. And so they put you through training for threat training.
As a flight attendant, you were learning this
I was learning that. And it was actually, they put us through terrorism training.
Makes sense.
And we didn't exactly have the right advice back then, because 9/11 happened and changed the whole profile of what a terrorist is willing to do. But what they did do, what it taught me was, water landings or, emergency landings. They taught us for a month and a half, down in Atlanta, how to prepare in case the plane had an emergency.
Odds of that happening are
very slim. I love flying. I feel very safe flying. But what it did for me is understand that process of inducing stress. So you go into autopilot when an emergency happens, and I think we do that with the passengers on the plane. They get on the plane. What a depressing thing to talk about. As soon as you get on every single flight, what's going to happen in a case of emergency?
I'm afraid I don't really listen. So.
Well, at some point, but you did listen and you know what to do, and so that's been built into you. I take that analogy and I bring that up because I feel like in threat preparedness for active shooter or an emergency in your home, or if you're in a public setting with your child, you've already run through the drill, and it's not scary.
Well, that brings up something to me that's kind of current. When you look at all these accidents that happen, mistakes, just seemingly bonehead maneuvers that, say, a cop does, or they obviously the criminal doesn't get the the attention or the eyes beating down on them about what they've done wrong.
Right.
Because they're already doing something wrong. Yeah. So it's almost expected from them, but the cops are expected to do so much.
The myth out there is that all the law enforcement agencies get training like Navy SEALs do. And they spend their whole life just running around on force training. When I say force on force training, that's when you're inducing a scenario-based training exercise and, going into a scenario and someone's coming at you, a role player and so forth. The amount of training, I think what the public thinks law enforcement agencies get and what they actually get is not aligned.
Well, that probably says something, right? That they should get that.
They should. And when you talk about defunding, not only are they defunding, that's the wrong. Yeah. So there's a lot, and I have so much compassion for law enforcement officers, as well as I started the company centric to giving for compassion for military, post-military, for law enforcement people that don't get that training, and giving them a new platform.
So now you're actually helping with that. That's your intention and your mission.
Oh, yes. And also women. Recently, I've had more time to focus with everything shutting down. I hadn't given the attention to women, so starting Red Flag Women with an emphasis on bringing in women to get the training and making them feel that tactical training.
Is that a separate class?
No, it's not separate. It's a separating kind of marketing strategy a little bit because I feel like we came out of the gate so hardcore, so bad at that terrified the people that were actually soft targets, which are people
the ones who need it.
The ones who need it. Instead, we had people showing up in their big lifted trucks with all their ink camo, all this stuff, and they all want to jump out of a helicopter. And I'm like, okay, this is great for about a year, but I'm like, okay, there's actually people that don't have that profile that are the most vulnerable. So you talk about vulnerable, and I think that's lovely because I think everything I try and do in my life has to do with helping people that are vulnerable, whether it be a product or service. They're vulnerable in some area of their life, and that's kind of my mission as a personal person, to help people from a vulnerable state to a non-vulnerable state.
One of the great things about vulnerability in general is that's the first step toward getting better, learning something. That's humility, acceptance. This is who I am. I need help. And
that's been a journey for me, and I feel like I've come a long way with that. I think we all put up walls to protect ourselves. We put up facades. I think my personal journey to discovering that started when I went through some real hard times after divorce, personal things. Yeah. And then then you get to know yourself. And the worse the things happen, the more there's opportunity to grow from that experience, depending on how you react to it. And I would say that people ask me, they're like, oh, what's your key to anti-aging? I've been you mentioned the medical aesthetic industry. I've run multiple medical aesthetic clinics. Yeah. I've funded from infancy and brought all the way to fruition a class 2 medical device centric towards treatment of skin, improving the skin for anti-aging and acne also.
So you're a part of the team that developed that product?
Oh, I was one of the product. Yeah, I was one of the inventors. That one I've developed multiple skincare company lines having to do with topicals. So the topical part of it. So I've done a device.
I saw something online about you that you were doing a video where you used chapstick for eyeshadow.
And that was burpees. That was funny. I was talking about simple techniques. I always talk about complicated, medical techniques. And I was like, well, what's something really simple I do that's a little trick I do? And it was, the burpees stuff.
Is that a regular thing that you do?
I do, because I think people put so much they do so many things extreme, and there's simple things you can do to look brighter every day with like right now I have a bit of makeup on because we have lights and cameras and everything, but I think my trick to anti-aging, I'm over 50 now, and so it's been a lifetime journey of trying to figure out how to stay looking youthful. And honestly, I feel like the number one thing is obviously taking care of your skin, okay, to a point, but to me it's mental mindset and it's positivity.
You don't let that happen.
Yeah, and you get everyone's like, oh, your life seems so happy and fun on Instagram. And it's like, oh my gosh, you have no idea. Yeah. Like, my life is horrible.
You have plenty of struggles and challenges and heartaches, and just like every other human being, right? Yeah. But you are fortunate that you still look young at your age.
And that's purposeful, and I feel like purposeful not in buying beauty products, but purposeful in attitude.
Yeah.
I was born here. I was born in Kentucky, actually, and I was given up for adoption, put in an orphanage, adopted out to a family, moved out to Oregon, and I do have a nice big family here, and raised out here, and enjoyed a nice middle class life. But after college and after getting into the world and going through a divorce, and a difficult divorce, with some interesting dynamics where I felt very vulnerable, I learned how to kind of pick up my bootstraps and continue on my way with my 2 little babies and take care of myself. And so I became...
How long did that take?
That was hard. That was it was a hard period. It was 2000. It took a good couple years to get acclimated into a new kind of business, because I quit being a flight attendant. I took they had voluntary severance with Delta, and that was great. I took that and had my babies, built a big log house out in the country, and enjoyed that. But dynamics changed. I had to come back to town and start over again with 2 babies and no money. And so when you have 2 mouths to feed and take care of by yourself with very little support, you have to be real creative. And back then there wasn't a lot, I feel like there wasn't a lot of communication systems or support groups. There wasn't social media.
What year was this?
2000.
Okay.
2000. So that's
I'm thinking, that's one of the things that you are never is a victim. You're like, okay, you may be a victim at times, but you don't have a victim mentality.
No, it's from the ashes, the phoenix will rise.
Yeah.
And this has, I always, when people ask me what was the story of my life like, I'm like, well, Joseph in his dream coat, when he's walking along and everything's great. Yeah, I love that musical, by the way. I'm a big musical theater buff. But
I like musicals.
He gets thrown in the pit over and over. He gets his brothers threw him in the pit, sold him off to slavery. All these things, up and down and up and down. And
but he just learned from all of it.
He learns from all of it. And in all of those experiences, you get forged into what you become. And you're forged in life's lessons. And it's how you react to those down times and those traumas. They are traumas I've been through, and it never ends either. This year has been horrible. Well,
this is the part about going against the grain. So this is really important that you talk about these things to the level that that you can.
Well, the first vulnerability was dealing with, and I'll be transparent about this, a non-healthy, toxic marriage that involved some unhealthy behaviors. That I kind of came out of that going, oh, the world isn't perfect. Yeah. People aren't nice. There's some dynamics, and then coming out of that and learning that just working hourly, for an hourly rate, not hourly rate, but what I was doing wasn't enough, and I was going to have to kind of be bold and work 2 jobs and moonlight, if you will. And that's when I started getting the entrepreneur bug. It's like, okay, this is my day job, but I'm going to really take risk at night.
Early 2000s.
That was 2003, 2004, and that's when I took on that light device company challenge of we went out and I learned how to do angel investor, investment raises. Running around giving my little spiel about this light device and raised $3.5 million and $4,300,000 angel investors all in Portland and so that's when I learned about how wow, if you believe and you're passionate, others will and they'll support you. And that was a lovely, I learned a lot about business. And I learned a lot about, this is how people can take advantage, meaning I wasn't well positioned in that project to have the power I needed to have to keep everything going in the right direction. And so I learned from, I learned from the sharks. I learned from the wolves. Yeah. I learned from the best. And you're like, okay, I just learned some life lessons about business too. It was a wonderful experience, and it financially was great for me and the kids. But from that, I really it became. I think it forged me into a businesswoman and a confident businesswoman. I want to have my own business eventually, and then did a couple more skincare companies, a couple more products for other people.
And that's another good interjection there. Look at this. She does. She talks about guns and the right way to use guns, and that's one of her businesses. And then she talks about beauty products.
Yeah, aesthetics.
And aesthetics.
Yeah.
It's like that's a pretty wide range right there. Plus, you were a freaking flight attendant.
Yeah. Well, people think that you go to college and you're going to pick a degree, and that's, my children are in that phase right now of college and everything, and picking their life choice. And I'm like, oh, please.
You don't know. Life's backwards.
Life, Life is, for me, it's about feeling and movement and energy and what's moving forward and what feels right. I have goals. I have very, very specific goals. So I have strong goals, but how you get there, you must be nimble and you must be intuitive to get there. And you also have to be okay taking risks. And I think
one of the things I discovered, and I know you know this, but I'd like to bring it up, is you don't know it all. You know what? Humble. The thing is, you be humble and accepting of the truth. And there's a lot of missing. That's not happening a whole lot in our society these days.
No, and that takes being vulnerable. So back to being vulnerable, and I'm
it's powerful.
It's very powerful. I'm being challenged this year, I'd say, also with being okay with being vulnerable in personal relationships, because I think I've kept myself a little protected in that area, and because I've been hurt. Yeah. And so being vulnerable in business, I think I'm much more bold. Oddly enough, I'm absolute resolve in business. I am Iron Woman in business. I'll come in and be like, hey, I do a lot of consulting.
Yeah. Well, I think part of that, let me ask you if this is true for you. One of the things that it took me, I always had a vision with Dave's Killer Bread the early years. I had that vision, but I didn't know it was a vision. And I was on a mission. I was on this mission, that mission, all in favor of getting the vision done, right? And the vision changed, we always adapted, because the first vision isn't, I'm going to be a wealthy bread baker. No, that wasn't it. It was like, I'm going to make some great stuff. And, essentially, and I started having bigger and bigger visions because I was having successes that shocked me. But I'm talking about for you, do you have a vision and mission statement?
Yes. In fact, you sort of, I think you maybe delved into my original mission statement that we did with About Face magazine. And interestingly enough, it hasn't changed too much. So, because a lot of mission statements change, I'd say I'm all the more resolved right now to help those vulnerable. And who that is right now feels like just the average civilians that, so wait, your question was, do I have a vision statement? So for the company, I have two visions now. Yeah. So I used to put work first 100% because I was so desperate to keep a roof over my children's heads and give us that. And it was like you said, it's about work.
Survival.
I had to go from soft, fun mommy Shannon to like business Shannon.
But you obviously like to work.
I love to work because it's so purpose. It gives you purpose, and you engage, and you feel successful or fail, and you learn, and you feel alive. So I love working. I would never be a very good stay at home, not do anything kind of lady. I could never do that because
I don't
have
to work, but I do.
Yeah, it's a chess game. That's a ball, and I always tell people, "Gosh, do what you love." But back to like, what's my mission? I feel like my mission is to stay in have my toe in anti-aging a little bit, keep my hand my finger on the pulse of anti-aging. Yeah, and I worked with the Japanese this year actually on a very nice medical device that we're bringing to the U.S. market. So I have a lot of pots of the irons in the fire, but anti-aging is just a personal passion too. So I have so much.
It's not just the outside; it's the inside. Yeah, it's everything.
In the inside, I got from starting and helping people in this tactical arena. So myself being having been a soft target and feel vulnerable in my life as I won't even say the victim word because I never feel like I feel like, oh, that was an interesting traumatic experience. How can I learn from that? That's my attitude. I don't ever.
Mine too.
And it's like move on, learn from it. But
if I am a victim, it's a victim of my own stupidity from time to time.
That's
failures.
Exactly, and that's the fun of being an entrepreneur. Is like you can't blame him, you can't blame your boss, you can't blame anybody. You're miserable. It's your own fault. And that's love that. I love that challenge. I don't mind at all.
It's a great discovery.
It's a really fun thing, and I think I'm madly in love with that. And so starting the last company being central, everyone was shocked when I started my own company. Finally, that was all mine, and it was a tactical training company. And it really comes back to, I think
when did you do that? What year?
2016, okay. January. And so the ideas were floating around, but it came to fruition January of 2016. And I think where I've evolved with it even more now as a mission is obviously creating a culture. This is an interesting landscape for our world right now. Mm-hmm. I know 2A and guns are a very it's a topic that's political, so are law enforcement and their training and all that. And all of that aside, I care about that, but my mission is to create an environment where people can come together, so not be divisive, but come together in camaraderie, celebrating the Second Amendment, which is there for a reason, and allowing them an opportunity, whether it be post-military people that like that, time on the range, or law enforcement that need extra training, or civilians. Now, I think the big demand is civilians. So many civilians have bought tactical firearms in the last year. I mean,
can you blame them?
Oh my gosh, no! And they're buying Glocks, and they're buying ARs, and that's my go-to is an AR. I love my AR.
How about an AK?
Yeah, I've shot that, but not as much as an AR. Yeah, but they're wonderful. But they need education around that. So I see that as a vulnerability that and a need to fill and help. So my mission is to help create an environment for learning to happen. And people have those environments out on the range, outside on their property, or they go to an indoor range. And so that's one area of it. But another area is that I'm moving into a little bit with the psychology part of it is law enforcement and military go through a lot of trauma. I've experienced women going through trauma. Myself, I've gone through trauma. So I'm getting my
like through their relationships and stuff.
Through relationships or experiences that were traumatic. I'm involved with people that deal with homicide. And
try raping a girl with a gun. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, not being a soft target. So not being vulnerable. So helping, whether it be the law enforcement not be vulnerable and getting them enough training so they feel confident in their jobs to have use of force options. And a lot of training to be proficient, so we can all feel really healthy and happy about our law enforcement and their training. And then also,
that's a lofty goal right there. I love that.
I think it's an important goal because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding with the public, and that leads me to women. What I love about the Red Frog, and I've been kind of the one woman in a band of the brothers.
Women are actually performing very well, like you told me before.
Yeah, they do great. But the misconception to women in firearms, they're in a school or something, or they're in a church, a Bible group, or they're home, and they think that they have to call 911. Now, obviously, a great law enforcement hopefully shows up, a great time, and saves the day. But I think they're misunderstanding that you can be. I'm not a.
You're not big.
I'm a badass, but I'm not a big. I'm not terribly
someone would
athletic.
look at you and maybe not think you're all that badass.
No, because I'm a tiny little thing. I'm not like in the gym all the time lifting weights. I love to swim. I love to shoot guns. I love to ride bikes. And
but your mind is there to begin with. It's experience. It's been through all this training that you've done, and so that you just keep it fresh and going. With all you do.
Being aware, and so, but I think if women understood that they could be proficient at defensive strategies and not feel like they have to rely on calling 911 or have to, most instances happen when you're a soft target, when the male leaves. That's maybe is the one that understands the guns in the house, or you're in a school and you're obviously a vulnerable slot. There's no police around, or there's no it's clearly identified as a gun-free zone. So anyway, my point is, I think I'm excited about empowering people and helping people become proficient, and helping people understand, allowing them to know things that they should know that they don't know that they don't even know they need to know, like combat medical training, how to help someone if they're bleeding next to you for whatever reason. My mother-in-law's on Coumadin, and she could bleed. Are often in the country, she could bleed out very quickly if we were cutting wood, and and I'm alone there. So how to react and help people around you in an emergency. Situational awareness. We're in a very weird time right now where our cities don't feel as safe as they did last year before COVID. And you and I are in Portland, Oregon. It's a unique culture and environment.
Almost the
here.
epitome of that.
Yeah. I felt very unsafe and very vulnerable this year, being in a target of a political group.
Yes,
I don't know how much I'll say about that, but
we'll say you got doxxed. That's as far as we want to go.
But
that's not good. Man.
Yeah, but again, here I go on and on and on about feeling safe and protected. I felt quite vulnerable, and that's a horrible place to be. So helping others not feel that again.
You know what? I think we're going to take a break.
Yeah,
just for a minute here, and do our very, very first commercial ever.
Fib is a game for liars and thieves. It's the party card game that welcomes your poor etiquette. Lie, steal, laughter will ensue. And I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. Fib is still pre-launch, and you get to play the game before anyone else. All you need is a printer. Head on over to www.fib.games now to download the free print and play. Fib, a game for liars and thieves.
TalkCast PDX is a digital platform for local talk shows, live video streaming shows, and podcasts originating from Portland, Oregon. We are committed to a diversity of opinions and quality talk that offers something for everyone. At our brand new state-of-the-art studio, we offer a wide range of services to meet every type of broadcasting need. Yes, we will help you record and edit your podcast or program. We also help you distribute on multiple platforms, and we can also help you transcribe your show for a blog. We offer video services and promotional services, as well as ad revenue packages. Email us today for a special introductory offer. Everything you need to start your own show as soon as possible. We're here to help. Go to TalkCastPDX.com, that's TalkCastPDX.com, and send us a message today.
Welcome back, and now we're back with Shannon Monahan.
Shannon Monahan.
How hard is that? It's not hard to say.
Oh, it's all right.
So, during the break, you mentioned reinventing yourself, and that is a perfect subject for our show.
Yeah. Reinventing. I think so many people get stuck in a rut, and they don't know how to, I say it, they nest or they get comfortable, and they're scared of change, because change is risk and change is scary. And I think one thing I've been able to do well throughout the years is reinvent, when the situation changes, and it's attitude. When something really bad happens, instead of letting it break you, you have to go, okay, that was fascinating. You have to have humor.
Yeah.
You have to go,
not poor me,
but how can I reinvent myself and look at this as an opportunity to grow? And then and it's never easy, and you have to pick up your bootstraps sometimes, often by yourself, and go out there and make it happen, because no one's going to make it happen for you.
Well, that's a very important point. For me, I mean, in prison, one of the best things that ever happened to me was learning not to depend on anybody. I didn't depend on letters from anybody. I would write letters and not get them back, and anything back, and that kind of thing, where I was alone. And once I learned to like being alone, that was a powerful thing for me.
You just nailed it. Being alone and being comfortable with being alone. And I think that was a lesson I really learned after going through divorce in 2000, going through life, going through stresses in life alone, and recovering, and not being negative and not letting it destroy you. And I've had that happen in personal situations and business situations, and then repeatedly in this last year in personal social relationship situations. And you can never let it defeat you. You have to learn from it, move on, but you also have to be the gas in your own car. So you have to be the one that lifts you up, takes you to the next level of what you're going to do, but you have to have the vision. So we were talking about vision. If you don't have a vision, I feel like it's critical, because vision is passion to me. So if I envision something and I just can't stop thinking about it, I become very passionate about that. And the passion is what gets you to get out of bed, put on your boots, go down and do something that's uncomfortable, like, network or get people gathered for, to try and execute on it. I mean, look at this podcast thing. Yeah. This is an example of, like, COVID hit. I was like about to turn on tactical training classes again. That got shut down, and then it got shut down again. I was like, okay, this is fun.
Let's mention that, by the way, you do have your own podcast that you're developing. You've done a few shows. After talking to you, I know that, and I understand that it's a development.
Yeah, it's hard. So
So it's another reinvention.
It is a reinvention, because COVID hit. I couldn't run classes, so I'm like, I want to be able to speak to people about tactical stuff. And so here you have this TalkCast PDX studio. It's fantastic. I'm like, well, and again, in typical Shannon format, it makes no sense for me to do, but I absolutely jump into it. And just.
But you're the kind of person who can do it. Not too many people can do that.
I don't mind failing. Yes. I don't mind failing, and maybe that's fool's game. But I think it's fun, and
That's such an important thing. okay, here I interject, but it's so important to learn to value your failures and learn from them and go, well, this is an opportunity. This isn't just a failure.
The big first company I did with that light device, 6 years into it, boy, did I have fun, traveled the country, got the product into all these great places. And because of the team that was formed, I should not say, but basically there was issues that I learned from that one might think that was a failure, but if anything, that was my launch pad to go, I'm going to do this again. This is fun. Coming up with a vision, selling people on the vision and the idea, and then taking a risk and going, getting funding or using your own funding. In the case of Red Frog, it's my own baby. I'm completely, but being okay to fail. And even Red Frog, there's been some people listening that know Red Frog and the drama around the company. There's been, challenges left, right, everywhere I turn, there's challenges.
So important, people just don't know. It's not like you're living with a silver spoon and everything's handed to you. It isn't like that at all.
It's not like that at all. And even with your bread company, everyone's probably like, oh, well, you just dreamed that up and everybody bought your bread.
Everybody's got misconceptions about my story. It's amazing, the misconceptions. But there's certain dynamics of it that really matter and resonate with people. And that's what we do. For me, I didn't dream up this bread in prison. It wasn't anything like that. I didn't think about bread while I was in prison, but I thought about creating products. I learned, I didn't care what it was. I was a drafter in prison, and I became one, and so I was learning to make that purse better than it is now. I can't make it better. I'm sure it's the best it can be. But no, if I learn how to make that purse with all the little things that make it that purse, then I can say, somebody can say, well, I want it with this feature and this benefit, marketing concepts. And that's what I did with bread.
Well, that's so interesting, because when I first did that light device, it was literally a drawing and a rendering and an idea that raised the $3 million. And now I'm about to do it again with the tactical training. I have a concept and a vision for something that I'm...
So you worked with somebody who actually did the drawing of it?
Yeah, yes.
So you envisioned things.
I envisioned it, and I said what it should look like, and then it ended up looking like, the engineers, everything. And I do that with topical companies that I've started and other things, but it doesn't matter what category. So you said it doesn't matter what it is, and that's kind of how I was trying to describe to everyone. You say, you go from medical aesthetics to tactical, but the thing is, it doesn't matter what category. And I think Elon Musk, I was listening to one of his podcasts, and he was talking about, I'll go in rockets, I'll work with pets, and that's how I feel. I don't care the category, the industry. I'm passionate about tactical. I'm staying with that forever, and I'm passionate with medical aesthetics and beauty, so I'm going to stay with that forever. So I kind of do have things.
But you're also excited about doing the branding.
All the branding, and the podcast thing excites me because it gives me an opportunity to talk about those two worlds. Yeah. But you're always developing and being that's critical thinking. I think our country, Dave.
We're seriously lacking in that. Right
I think we're lacking critical thinkers. I really am a little bit disturbed by people who are shaming critical thinkers.
Yeah. Oh, that's scary.
That's scary, because critical thinking is what's missing.
I don't think anybody who likes that sort of bring us down to your level, sort of, so we all equal. So you need to come down here. You need to, think like this. I don't think anybody like that's going to listen to my show much.
Yeah. Well, you and I are two peas in a pod in some ways. and but it comes back to you peel back you peel back me, you peel back what fuels us, is passion about something and being creative and executing on something that we believe we can actually bring to fruition. Mm-hmm. And what a beautiful thing. Yeah. And I think more people should do that. I feel like people get caught up in making things simple and not doing the hard work, and there's so much missing.
Once you get on that road, that path, where you have that vision and you're on that mission, you don't have enough time in the day. That's my experience. It's like, oh man, I got to go to bed though. I got to get some rest. Absolutely.
And your brain goes to bed thinking, and you wake up thinking and then doing.
But you feel good though.
There's nothing more fun than...
You don't need that much sleep when you're in that mode.
No, I'm in that mode right now because it's another pivot for Red Frog and bringing something to fruition. And so it's It's so exciting. I do it for free. Oh, I actually do it for free because you cut it. Yeah, as an entrepreneur,
fake it till you make it on the money side.
Fake it till you make it. Absolutely. But the thing is, I don't think enough people understand the glory of creating something and seeing your idea come to fruition.
That's what made me happy. That was the thing. It was but I was always creating, even though I made the bread. I mean, I had to keep creating things. I had to create the things to sell it, and to get, I had to create new areas to sell the bread, geographical areas. I mean, I had to do all these things that were unbelievable, and I loved it. You know what I mean? That was that. But the first thing that taught me was in prison when I was a drafter and I'm creating products. I realized I had the brain for it. And I honestly think many people who don't even know it have the brain for it. They just have to turn a corner. So
confidence.
Yes, confidence and belief. And so when I got out of prison, that I was already on that trajectory, and making that bread was just like another. Yeah, I did it again.
Okay, I have a question for you, because I'm sure everyone listening is going to think this. And by the way, I want to work with you on whatever you're about to say. So okay, so Killer Dave's bread, kind of successful, kind of awesome, worked out. You said you had a lot of other ideas, and that's like me. I have whiteboards and notes and all these crazy things I've thought of, but you can't execute on all of them. If there was one more thing you could execute on, what might it be that didn't come to fruition?
I think it would be going back to the wonderful time that I had in drafting, and I would just take that to where it would have gone. See, that was my goal. My dream was to continue on this path, and I got diverted into a drug program when I got out of prison, on the way out of prison. So I was I lost the trajectory of creating products that way, creating ideas that way. So I ended up, the opportunity for me was with the family, making bread. That was my opportunity. It was my best opportunity. And I was like, this is great.
Well, to that point, people make a plan. And I think the most important thing about being an entrepreneur and being a person with a good attitude is also having intuition and energy feeling. So it's like, okay, the energy's not moving on this thing. That was my plan. I did have a goal. I'm not a flake.
Be able to admit that. Yeah.
I'm not a flake. I'm just trying to feel what's moving. And that was moving for you then.
It was.
And you can park and come back to the drafting. In fact, that's so funny you say drafting, because I've worked in manufacturing for years, and you're always trying to get your idea down on paper so someone can execute the creation of it. So I have some things I might want to talk to you about. Because in tactical, you're always trying to be creative. But anyway.
And I know we're going to have more podcast interviews too, but I would like to, you did ask, okay, what would I do? And I said, well, I ended up doing the bread. So a lot of times I'm like, what would have happened if I could have gone this other trajectory? And because I was having so much fun. When you're having that much fun and you're that passionate, and you get product that actually is working, and you're getting better and better like every day, And the drafting, that was 2001. The drafting was one thing. It was like manual drawing was outdated already.
Right. So you had to learn.
But it was so much more powerful. See, you had, and I remember guys who were drafters who were excellent at the old-fashioned kind, and they were like, "Well, this is so much better than what you're doing." And I'm like, "No, because I could draw what you just drew, and I could change it about 1,000 different ways, and you'd be, erasing something and doing that." I mean, it's just so much more powerful, and these people were not willing to change.
You were on a computer system, so you had great technology when you were learning it. So.
And it gave me so much power so fast.
And you know what? I would say that's one of my shortcomings is I wish I was going to go into design in college at U of O, and I ended up going into public speaking because I could speak quicker and easier than I could draw. But that's amazing to be able to do. That's very powerful to be able to do what you're talking about. You could still do that. My gosh, there's such a need.
I could, but the thing is, again, there's not that much time in a day. I do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, okay, so I could. Yeah, I have so many questions to ask you.
Well, I can come on your show.
There you go. Yeah.
I don't have much to say about guns other than when I was a criminal, in my criminal days, which, was a couple decades, I always had guns, but and I never learned how to use it properly or anything. I would just
Yeah.
Sometimes I'd fire them in the house because by accident, like
No, that's awful. Oh, Lord.
that's how bad I was at first. Then I could be more careful.
Yeah.
But I always had. my thing was a sawed-off 12-gauge shotgun. That was like okay. That I don't need to be that good with a gun.
Shotgun's a little more. But to that point, you should be gun safety in a house. It's so important. I know it's so There's so much to learn, and quite frankly, guns are fine.
I was on drugs too. So.
Oh God.
Anyway,
well, to get through all of that, and then to come, when did you finally come out? When did the bread start? When did that? What year?
Middle 2005 but I got out on December 27, 2004, and within 6 months I had this bread.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was also working my regular baking job at $12 an hour. I was getting $12 an hour, working 40 hours a week, but actually working 70 and getting paid for 40 because the extra 30 was product development and research and development.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah, and there that time between when you have an idea and you actually make money in a company, it's people don't understand.
It took me years.
You have to. I moonlighted. Like I always say, have your ATM job during the day, where you're getting your money, and then take your risk at night with the idea or whatever you're trying to pull off. And
when I created Dave's Killer Bread, I was making $15 an hour. I made $12, and then I told my brother, I asked my brother, will you just pay me? Because I wasn't an owner. I was creating bread on a $15 salary. And anyway, I was actually making about $6-7 an hour when you count it all up. So I told my brother, how about you pay me for 40 hours a week at $15 an hour, and the rest of it's on me. I didn't have time because I was so focused. I didn't have time to spend money. I didn't need it,
Yeah.
I lived in my mom's garage. That was better than any cell that I lived in.
Yeah.
And, there was nothing to cry about.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's people don't. I've lived in nice places. I've lived in really, really tiny places, and honestly, I've had the most fun and joy with my children in the tiniest of places.
Mm-hmm.
And
simple.
Mm-hmm. And I hope if we all can agree. I mean, it's been an interesting couple of years. You and I both have similar belief systems on some things, but I think what we can all agree on is that simplifying our life and appreciating the little things, creating a more a bubble that's purposeful in your life. So whether it be people that you want to have in your life the next 50 years or people you don't, and what you want to spend your time doing. So time is gold.
That's my weakest. That's my weakest area, I think, is that
time management.
Well, I'm good at time management until other people get involved. So if I allow somebody to, pull me a different direction, and that's a tendency I have because I'm always trying to do new things and sometimes I think I need this person or this person can help with that. And they always, 99% of the time, end up being a deterrent.
You're bringing up a really good point. This is why I keep whiteboards all over my where I exist, because I'm always trying to keep myself focused. Yeah. People who work with me love it because I have so many ideas and so many things and willing to do so many things. But at the same time, there's only so much time in the day and we have to focus. Yes. And so you're like me. I think you can connect with people very easily, and so that's a lovely thing. But it also can be a deterrent because you're constantly able to engage, and then that
and your life becomes more and more about that instead of what you're trying to do.
Right. And the one thing I've really done this last year, I was just telling somebody about this weekend, is that I instead of doing what everybody else wants me to do with Red Frog, I'm going to do what I want to do, or whatever company I'm working on. I'm working on a couple companies right now. My primary is this, but a couple other projects, and it's kind of like everyone wants you going in a certain direction. There's this train, and you're Dave, you're Killer Dave Bread. Yeah. Oh my God, you got to do your bread, and you sometimes it's up to you to pull the train. You're on a train, speed train. You have to pull that, emergency thing, and it makes everybody fly and fall, and then they bitch and they want they're upset the train stopped. Yeah, okay, but so they're panicked because you stopped the train. We wanted the train to go in this direction. You're Dave's Killer Bread. We only want you talking about bread and blah blah blah. And same with my world. I get in the medical world or I get in the tactical world. Everyone's like, I put myself in a box, kind of, but I won't allow that. Yeah. And so you talk about being able to reinvent. I know you. Powerful. You're like me. You could come up with a whole new thing tomorrow that would be just as exciting, purposeful, and wonderful as Killer Dave bread.
But I know how much work goes into it, and I'm not willing to do that anymore.
Yeah, yeah. So you want to do it easier. You've learned. Yeah.
I do things, but
more efficiently.
Yeah, I just have a different, because I don't need to accomplish this particular goal like I used to. But I mean, that's a terrible thing to say to people that, you can rest and relax now. No, you have to first.
Well, look at what we're sitting here doing. So people listening to everybody and their brother is starting a podcast. So here's Dave starting one, Shannon starting one. Oh my God. It's actually hard.
And the engineer over there, he's got his
Justin,
own too.
No one tortures Justin more than I do. But I don't know how to do a podcast. It's been a learning experience. Yeah. So you talk about you don't want to do anything as difficult as Killer Day Bread. Great. And I don't want to do anything difficult either. And I'm changing. So it's a more touchless company that I'm doing. And I'm putting things into place so I don't have to do as much. But then look at us jumping into a podcast. I mean, a podcast
That's the kind of people
hard.
We are.
We're nuts in a good way.
But see, this was all encompassing. This was actually a big project for me. I didn't necessarily think I was going to ever do a podcast again. I did one before. That was called Felony Inc. And long story on that. It was cool, but anyway. I'm going to move on from that. I became an investor in and an owner of this Portland interview magazine. They did an interview with me, and then I became interested in owning part of it, and we decided that we would have a podcast as part of this. The podcast is way cooler than a magazine.
Well, I was at your event when you were on the cover. I didn't meet you that night. David was going to introduce us, but everyone was, having a good time. It was at Rococo's or something. You played music.
That was Jack London.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, we never actually met because you were on the stage, and so that's so funny. And I was in the magazine for something else. When we started Red Frog, so that was how David Bentley. David touches everything, but anyway, David Bentley. But and so this is an adventure, and I do think it's brilliant too, because it gives you the chance to actually talk. We've all seen you on the bread. When we grab our bread at the store, there's Dave. But to let you have a platform to talk and about something different than your other podcasts,
right?
Awesome.
It's not really about me, but like in the past, everything's been sort of about me and my bread, which is cool. But
reinvent.
It's like now I don't really want to focus on me, but I do want to focus on those great principles that got me where I'm at today, and things that I might learn from, say, you, or that might help me be better.
You've kind of described the podcast I'm doing, where I want to lift up other people that are doing interesting things around subject matter experts that I don't claim to be a subject matter expert on certain things, for sure. And it's so nice to be able to lift up other people and give them a voice and a platform and engage them and let them do that.
That is absolutely true. But there's also the other side of it, where those people like you and whoever, you're going to inspire. You definitely are going to touch a life by doing this. And it's more effective than, say, a magazine. First of all, people don't like to read magazines that much anymore. They listen to podcasts.
Yeah, so they absolutely do. And it's like bringing the magazine to life, but even better. There's so much more touch and information to be able to hear the voices and kind of go in more directions. And now I think there's a little bit of video. I know, it's kind of fun.
We're going to have some video on this. I think we're on video. Are we on video right now?
Are we on video? Well, I think it's bold. I think you and I both had a year where we were questioning, a lot of things that were going not necessarily in a positive direction. And so it's so nice to come off of what has been this landscape of America. We both are in the Portland area, Dave and I, and this is actually in Portland. And so there's positivity. Despite what, the narratives are out there, I think
we can't be victims to that.
And we can be positive without being divisive. Mm-hmm. And you and I think are interesting in the sense that I don't know how long you've been in Oregon. I've been here my whole life.
Born here.
Yeah, okay, and I've lived here since '68. Yeah, so I mean, we have like the podcast I did with Eric. We love Portland. I love Oregon. Mm-hmm. And so when whatever your side is, or this, that, and the other, the commonality is that we love people. We love
I think it's interesting about Eric is he seems to be like super open-minded. Like, he doesn't just go, this is what I believe, so, everything's about this.
Yeah,
It isn't like that.
No, and I think you're like that truly, and I think I'm like that truly. I think Eric, I think all of us, we lean sort of one direction or the other, okay? And people who know us probably know what that is. Yeah. But with that said, hopefully new people that know us maybe don't, because they understand that my intent is not to be divisive ever. I don't think Eric's is. I know yours is not. And it's to celebrate positivity, celebrate success, and celebrate being unique and critical thinking for yourself and doing for yourself.
Yeah, critical thinking is so lacking right now.
I feel like the most lovely invention, you talk about being an inventor, well, golly gosh, the iPhone. How about, what a great invention. Yeah. But what I feel like it's done.
So abused.
Yeah, it's so abused. But not only is it abused, but I feel like it's taking away our youth's ability to critical think. They can't get outside of, a downtown without, you can't.
No, not to mention the teachers.
Oh my gosh. No, it's.
Not to offend any teachers out there, but.
No, there's wonderful teachers. Oh, yeah, I'm getting, among the other things I'm doing, I've started my master's program for psychology. Yeah. And there is definitely narratives out there in school systems that are pushing the students in a direction of, you're better if you think like this. And I'm noticing this with the program. Scary. I shouldn't say much about this. But anyway, but my point is, we want to be critical thinkers. We want to celebrate our children to critically think. And I feel the downside of the devices that they have is they just, oh no, I don't need to do that. I just look it up. I have an app for that. And it's taking away communication. So the ability to speak, literally, conversation, taking away conversation. Everyone wants to text, and it's a great shortcut. But
these podcasts are becoming so prevalent. If you actually listen to podcasts, it's going to help you develop your conversational abilities.
It's celebrating conversation again, and that's, as a person, you mentioned in the beginning, my degree was in rhetoric and communications, the art of communicating, and it's
and now psychology,
now psychology.
That's like up here.
Yeah. And I never did get an MBA in business, though. I did that from experience. I just figured, just like you.
Well,
did you get it?
I don't have no MBA.
Neither. I think it actually.
I got a drafting degree, though.
Right. I honestly, everyone's like, well, you must have a business degree. I'm like, no. I think that
I didn't even graduate high school.
Well, it's critical thinking. It's being creative. It's believing in yourself and confidence. And so I think the secret to being an entrepreneur is nothing more. It's not complicated. Just believe you can envision something and believe you can do it, even if you're going to fall and fail.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this right now and you go, oh, well, I'm working hard, but I want to be an entrepreneur now. Well, do your homework on that, because not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. First of all, you have to. What is your life right now? And is that how much do you do this, and how much do you care about that? Because you're not going to be able to do that.
No, it's my family. You talk about my big family. My family is a family that sticks in a job and doesn't usually change jobs. And I was the one, because I was the adopted one in the family. Something was a little off with. I was like, nope, I'm going to go do this. Nope, I'm going to go do this. And it's not always safe. And as a single mother of two, it really wasn't safe to be an entrepreneur, because you can't juggle everything. But that's
exactly.
That's how.
That was an advantage I had, by the way. I got out of prison and I had nobody.
Yeah. So you could take a risk.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's kind of how I feel right now. My kids are grown and I can take a risk again. And that's why I started the company right after they'd gone through high school and they're in college. You know, once I did, I could take more of a risk and have my own company 100%. And so you're exactly right. If you fail, you don't want to hurt anyone in that process, just yourself.
Plus, the other aspect is you know how much time your family takes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to work, and I stayed at work.
Yeah, because it becomes a baby, a startup company or a product.
Family. That was my baby.
It is your baby.
And actually, that I can tell you as an entrepreneur, one of the most painful things was losing my baby. But of course, it made it a little bit less painful because I got a few dollars. But that was never my goal, you know.
No, it isn't. And that's what people, I think if you go into being an entrepreneur with that being the goal, it's not, I think it's yucky. It's yucky. I think if you go into it with passion and excitement. That's no fun because you'll never be happy until you actually get the money. Yeah. The happiness should be before that. Yeah, I'm a testament to that because I'm still chasing the money, but it always comes though. Like I joke, Jess, I've had a nice life. My children have had a nice life. The money has always come, but it's never been driven by money. Right. Everything I've done has never been driven by money. Well, I can see that in you. No. That's for sure. No, we have to. We're getting told we got to wrap this up, which is kind of crazy because we got a lot more to talk about. But we'll do it. We'll do it some other time. You have to come on my show. I want to. Yeah, and we don't have any problem finding things to talk about. That's for sure. So, is there anything you want to plug before we go? Well, Red Frog Stop, Listen, Shoot is my podcast, and I'm still defining it. You talk about reinventing. I unlike Dave took the time to actually really methodically plan out how he was going to launch his podcast. We even did you're so great about that. And I'm more like, no, I'm just going to start in the middle of the snowstorm. This morning I got up, and because last night I was watching TV, and it got a little late, and I was like, oh, no, I got to get up. So I only slept 5-6 hours, and then, but I got up with a goal to make sure that I was ready for this podcast. Oh, I could tell. It was wonderful. You did wonderful. It's so important. But I'm going to be doing my podcast. I'm going to be working on developing right now a tactical training center which has a location. I'm not telling everyone yet because we're working on that. But being able to execute and create an environment for people to come to the training at a specific location. And then I'm excited about the podcast though, because this opens up a lot of doors. Yeah, and it'll be an evolving thing. It'll happen. You'll be able to use it as a tool different ways. Yes. Now, I just have to wrap this up by asking you to give a website address or something that's going to be Instagram, so people can keep up with you. Well, the easiest way is directly at Shannon Monahan Instagram or Red Frog Team Instagram. My website is redfrogteam.com, and that's closed right now during COVID. I kind of shut it down because people were buying products, and I had to shut everything down in classes. But directly Shannon at redfrogteam.com is my email. Oh, great. Well, I had my email on the bread at one time. That didn't work out too well after a while, but I know it was great at first. So anyway, we're going to wrap this up. What a great show, in my opinion, my humble opinion, of course. I think it's all about the guest, and that's been Shannon Monahan, and I don't even know what to call Shannon Monahan. She does so many things, but overall, she's kind of a big picture person who actually gets down and gets it done. So thank you for being on our show, and I look forward to being on yours. And thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll be back.
You've been listening to the Portland Interview Magazine podcast. Go to TalkCastPDX.com for past episodes and check out all the great local programming on TalkCast PDX. That's TalkCastPDX.com.